Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you all to another webinar, and this one is on udder health. And I'll click to the first slide because I know you've all been waiting eagerly. There. So you'll see my name is Wendy Ward. I look most like the first picture basically. The other people you will see today or this evening will be Chris Payne, one of our engineers, who's kindly made some videos on the robot, showing you the features that are most related to udder health and how to maintain these and how they work. So there's going to be a bit of technicality here as well today. And then we've got my colleague Bas van Santen, who has worked with robots for many, many years and has worked for Lely nationally as well, and knows a lot about farming and robots and the software and everything basically. So Bas is going to show you more about specific settings on the robot software that we can do to make milking even better, if you like. Now, I hope you all enjoy that. I'll kick off myself. I'm working with Bas now and my colleague Maren doing FMS in Devon and Cornwall, which is farm animal support, farm management support. My background is in large animal practice. So I was a farm vet for give and take 10 years before I joined Lely about 6 years ago. And since then I've learned lots about robots. And yeah, now is my chance to try and combine these things and hope that you'll all learn a few bits tonight and find this very interesting. This webinar will be recorded. So by all means, if you are in any doubt, check if your microphone and video are off until we have a discussion at the end. So if you hover to the top or the bottom of your screen, you should get a black bar, which will show you a few options, so mute and videos. And then we have a Q&A. This is the area where you can fill in any questions. You can type in questions during the webinar, and please do so. There's a few moments that we will ask and see if there's any relevant questions that we can answer straight away, or we'll save the questions for the end of the webinar when we have an open discussion and when you can all unmute yourselves, of course. So there we go. What we will look at today will be mastitis control points to set the scene in the cow, the shed, and at the robot. We've got, like I said, a few videos, and we're looking at the standard milking routine. Then we're going to dive a bit deeper into the robot mastitis detection methods. So what can the robot do to find mastitis? Then we'll do the milking technique and optimizing these settings, fine-tuning milking routines, and these are very specialist things, and it's very good. Every robot can do them, every Lely robot. So it will be good to if everybody knew about how they can use them. Then we're going through the actual cell count reading and how does the robot do this? And then we'll dive into the software. We've done a couple of farm walks recently where we looked at the cows and the robots and mastitis in the shed. Now on the webinar, we've got more of an opportunity really looking at the computer screens and looking at all the data and reports that you as a farmer can use day to day. Or if you're an advisor or a veterinary surgeon or farmer obviously yourself, how you can analyze this data and use this to look at your herd performance and see where the areas are that you can improve on. We'll round this all off with a discussion, of course. So first of all, automatic milking systems, as they're often called, or we call them robots, versus milking parlors. There are similarities and there are differences. So first of all, they both milk cows, so that's a similarity. And milk itself is harvested in very similar way. We still use vacuum and pulsation. So in robots, there can still be the same issues with vacuum and pulsation if they're set up wrongly or if they go wrong. So your dynamic and your static milking test, parlor testing, we still call it the parlor test. That's all the same. We also have the same pathogens in the shed and on the cows. So in that way, we have the same preventative and curative actions, though with a slight tweak of what we can and can't do. So first of all, what's the difference? So a big difference is the free cow traffic system, which most robots run and all the Lely robots run. Cows have an option to go and see the robots or lie down in a cubicle, more or less when they want. Milk intervals are anywhere between 2 to 5 milkings a day. So where a parlor is milking twice or 3 times a day, in a robot you have a group of cows that are, some cows will milk twice a day, some cows will be milked 5 times a day, or anything in between. The milking routine, well, that is actually very static in a robot. So the robot will treat each cow the same unless we set a different setting. Whatever you tell the robot to do, it will do. So if you speak to your employees, your milkers, then they will want to do what you tell them to do, but they might have slightly different interpretation. People are different. So you do get more of a set milking routine on a robot. Set pre-treatment and post-treatment. The technical milk settings that are available on the robot are probably more than there is on your parlor, and they can be set per cow or per group. So that's a difference. Mastitis detection methods are clearly different as well, because we are lost with, well, we don't have the hands-on contact with the udder. So we can't feel a hard udder or a warm udder. But the robot needs to compensate for this. So we got lots and lots of sensors that look at the milk and the milk temperature, the milk viscosity, and I'll explain that all in the next slides. In the end, though, there's lots of research nowadays done, and the incidence of both clinical and subclinical mastitis, whether it's a robot farm or a conventional farm, there's no significant difference. So it's still talking about the same challenges. And these same challenges form, let's say, these bacteria and a few more, but these are at the moment, let's say, the most seen, the most found. So, and we tend to, well, split them up in 2 to 3 groups. So we got environmental bacteria, E. coli and Klebsiellas, and contagious bacteria. And at the moment, we're mainly talking about Staph aureus. There's a few more as well, especially if you do your NMR reports, NML reports, or you test your milk at the vet practice, you'll find more different bacteria as well. But we're looking at these 2 groups, environmentals and contagious. And then we've got this one, Strep uberis, that does a bit of both. So just to set the scene, what's the difference here? Environmentals, like the name says, live in the environment. So they multiply in organic materials like dung, muck, mud, straw, sawdust, anything a bit organic and a bit humid, and they love it. So sudden infections are also a feature. So cows tend to go suddenly ill because the bacterium invades the cow, causes damage inside the cow, so inside the cells damage, and we get toxins, and that causes the cows to go really ill. One of the key features in, let's say, prevention of environmental mastitis is looking at hygiene. So we don't want that muck and dung and straw and sawdust and whatever the bacteria can multiply in. And we want not too much humidity, because that's what they love to multiply. So keep that in mind. Strep uberis, like I said, is one of those bacteria, really. However, Strep uberis is also a little bit like Staph aureus, so it's contagious. Now, there is a little bit of an overlap anyway, but contagious bacteria are sort of more or less known to live in or on the cow. So we got udder skin where they sit on. They sit inside cow's immune cells and inside udder tissue, and sometimes even saliva. Their main feature, if you like, is persistent infections. So where the environmentals tend to sort of be hit and go bacteria, the persistent infections come from contagious. I know Klebsiella every now and again has become a bit chronic as well. So as I said, there is a bit of an overlap. The high cell counts continuously on the thousands, 500, 700, fluctuating up and down a little bit, but never going below the 200 mark. That's more or less contagious often. Other key sort of way to look at them is cow-to-cow contact. and in our case, cow to robot to cow contact, or what we used to call the milking machine. That gets even more sort of clear to see when you got chapped teat skins and teat end damage. That is sort of an area where the contagious bacteria in the skin can sit and wait their time. Now, just keeping those things in mind, I'm not talking the whole evening about them because there's many other webinars from AHDBs and other companies that will tell you all about these bacteria. And tonight we're going to really focus on the practicalities. What does it mean on a robot farm? So on robot farms, we've got cows. So the main thing to battle any infection is the health of your cow. So we've got to have a good working immune system. How do we do that? Look after the cows, the diet. So you've got to be strong, you've got to eat. So we need quality forage and a bit of minerals and a bit of extra bits and bobs. And we need a lot of quantity of that. We don't want cows to run out of food at any time. We also want them to have the food available to them. And with that, we mean, you know, it might be there at the feed fence, but if they can't reach it, then we need to push it up because otherwise it's not available. If the feed trough of the feed fence is not big enough, we've got too many cows, then they can't all eat and then it's not available. Or let's say the bossy cows get the best bites first and the lower ranking cows get sort of the leftovers. So we're looking at that. To keep your cows healthy, we want to have food of good quality, good quantity, and availability. The next thing then is also a bit of stress. And I think the last couple of days, if not weeks, we'll see heat stress in cows. So that heat can give stress because obviously cows produce a lot of heat themselves. And if they can't get, well, if the heat is already there in the environment, they get stressed and their intakes run down as well of that diet. The other area of stress is calving stress. And to be fair, I mean, nature has made all mammals around calving sort of weaker anyway, because our immune systems are tuned down to make sure we don't recognize, well, we don't get rid of the calf or the baby. So we want to, so the immune system of any cow calving is already at a lower level anyway. Now, we want to keep it as strong as possible by making sure that she's got enough space, that she's not stressing, that she has the feed intakes. The other thing is pain, obviously. So we got in brackets there lameness, because that is a cause of, let's say, chronic pain. It can last for weeks if it's not dealt with properly. Any other disease the cow might come across and is, let's say, dealing with, obviously takes away a bit of her immune function there. So she's battling more infections. So that reduces her resilience. Vaccinations, on the other hand, and I'm pretty sure everybody's learned about vaccinations in the last year or two. They can boost immunity. There's a few available now on other health issues. But again, these work best on actually cows that are already quite strong and have a good working immune system. So the aim really of the game is to reduce the chance to get mastitis or another health issue. That means, in what we just talked about, making sure the cow is very resilient, as high as best resilient as we can get. And also, the other hand, we want the number of pathogens to be as low as we can get them. So how are we going to reduce the number of pathogens so we have a lesser chance that the cow meets the pathogen basically and gets infected? That's what we're focusing on now. So let's say in the robot shed, what do we do there? We've got free cow traffic, and so that means that the cows can lie down, eat, or get milked one after the other whenever she likes, more or less. Potentially, cows can lie down after milking in a cubicle. So if that cubicle is dirty, we have a problem. So cubicle management in robot farms is even more important than in parlor farms. It's obviously important in both. The tricky bit is, though, that's usually done with cows in the shed. So we need to find a system, and that's where, you know, we come in and the farmer comes in and say, how can we make this work? So we need to make sure every cubicle is done. We might need to tell a cow to get up to clean out a cubicle, and we need to use a time of day sensibly. So let's say we feed out fresh feed, then most of the cows will go to the feed fence. Obviously, we always have feed available, so not all cows are hungry, because that's not what we want. But still, the feeder wagon comes out, you'll see there will be a drive to the feed fence. So at that point, our cubicles are less busy. So why not do cubicle maintenance at that point of the day? The other thing we're looking at, obviously, when we're talking hygiene in the shed, is the yard. So cows walk in the yard, and I'm afraid they also poo in the yard, so their poo goes onto their feet. So again, yard scraping is really important, but that needs to be done when the cows are in the shed. So how do we do that? Well, again, think how your shed works. Is there a way that you say, okay, when the cows are feeding at the feed fence, you're scraping up the yard and someone else does the cubicle at the same time in between the cubicles, but obviously I can't scrape behind the feed fence. So at that point, I need to find another way to make sure that the cows at some point leave the feed fence. I might need to drive them through a footpath while I do that. And then I've done, hit two birds in one stone. And then I can scrape the feed fence. Automatic scrapers are really popular in robot herds just for that reason, that we always have the cows there and we can scrape more often. And if you see here, the robotic scrapers, and I've got a picture of that here, that is obviously one of the latest things, very popular on robot herds. And so you don't get that pool of slurry in front of the scraper. These are sort of, this one is like a Hoover, more or less, really. Very good at keeping the yard clean and therefore the cows clean. You see here is the legs of these cows and the udders. That's what we're aiming for. So the next thing, foot bathing. So that is a little bit of a risk. So you might think, well, we're talking udder health. Why talk about foot baths? Well, if a cow walks through a foot bath, and if that's at the end of the robot, her teat ends are open, so we get that splash onto the udder. And that's a risk, because if that foot bath is dirty, then that's a risk to the udder. So what can we do about that? Well, we can make sure the foot bath is clean. So we can use an automatic foot bath, so we don't get too many passes through the foot bath before it's cleaned out. Or we can use the robot setup and make sure that it's not on the one exit of the robot, but we can do a split exit, so the robot can go direction A or direction B. And in that way, we can send the cow through the foot bath once a day instead of 5 times a day when she's got 3 milkings and 2 refusals when she comes too often. So a foot bath on separation is an option. Another option is a foot bath somewhere totally else in the shed, like at the end of the cubicle row. That means that you have to drive the whole group of cows through that foot bath. But that can be done, let's say, again, when you feed off the cows, you can move them all out of the cubicle shed through the foot bath to the feed fence, or vice versa, when you need to scrape the feed fence. But that's all management discussions to be had. The other option is a foot spray in the robot, and that's a picture here. So this is the grid where the cow is and the feet, and then we've got the udder somewhere here. So there we go. That is a spray bar on the back feet, cleans the feet first and then puts the treatment solution on the feet. So it's one of the things like foot bath that helps you maintain digital dermatitis and foot health at a decent level. So that's an option as well. Just to get you an idea of how that looks in a shed, this is an example, but there's many different layouts, but we got here the free cow traffic option, so we can see the cow going here into the robot, and let's say she normally goes out, lies in a cubicle, eats some food one way or the other. If it's foot bathing time, she might be sent that way, and then she goes around the back and through the foot bath and then out into the cubicles. So different farms have different setups. But this is just to give you an idea of what happens with this free cow traffic. The cow can start eating at the feed bunker here and then decide to go to the robot and then feed again. She can go and feed, decide to the robot, and go and lie down in a cubicle. She can go and have a little chat with another cow. It's all there. Okay, grazing systems. We do have grazing systems. So in that way, in the summer, you can find times of the day when the shed is less busy. So that will be the time to scrape your shed out. The other thing about grazing is that to make it work, we tend to use small paddocks that give access to clean and fresh grass. That system where a cow goes out, let's say in the morning to paddock A, and then midway through the day goes out to paddock B, that stimulates a shed visit because she needs to go to the shed and then to the robot to be sent out to paddock B, and she learns that. So that gives more milkings if you use 2 or 3 different paddocks a day. From an udder health point of view, this is really good because you get clean grass all the time, and that reduces the risk of lying down in the same area where potentially strep uterus can sit down. What we do need to realize, though, is how to manage, let's say, the high traffic areas. So the areas closest to the shed are potentially the muddiest areas. So whether you concrete them or whether you do any sort of other sort of surface on that, that's the one to watch out for. And the grazeway selection gate, that's the gate where the cows go through all the time. So that needs to be cleaned, once or twice a day, really. So look at that. Manage your tracks for mud. Definitely an issue with potential issue for udder health. If we go back to the robot now, so we've done the cows, the sheds, the grazing, and now the robot itself. So the robot does about 180 milkings a day. And depending on your system, that means it could be visited by 50 cows or 150 different cows. Let's say you got a shed which milks 3 robots in one group of 150 cows. So depending on the farm layout, but still, even if on one robot on 50 or 60, maybe 70 cows, that is a high risk for spreading mastitis if that robot itself is dirty. The dirtier the cows are, the more likely it is that the robot gets dirty. So it works both ways. The robot is still a milking parlor, so we ask farmers to clean the robot on the outside twice a day and note areas that make contact with the cow, because that's the areas where we're talking about that contagious mastitis, but also the environmental mastitis can spread via the robot from cow to cow. The milking process itself, if you are not familiar with it, it starts with dispensing feed, then it brushes to clean and stimulate the teats, and then we got an option to brush twice with a disinfectant, rinsing the brushes in between. That's a USA pre-treatment, and that's an option. It usually is just a brush, and then the brushes are disinfected between milking, so between different cows. But the USA pre-treatment cleans the brush for the same cow, so we get an extra cleaning there. After that brushing, we get the cup connection, and then during milking, the brushes, like I said, are disinfected for the next cow. After milking, we get a takeoff, and the takeoff is done on milk flow per quarter. So we don't get over milking at the end of milking. That's the aim. So it measures the milk flow. When the milk flow slows down, the cup is taken off. After takeoff, we get the post-milking teat spray. So we don't have a dip cup, we have a spray. And whilst the milk is pumped to the tank, the liners are rinsed or steam cleaned. And we call that a Pura steam unit. All these things will be shown to you now in the next video. So this is my next challenge, to start a video. So bear with me.
I'm going to show you some of the areas on the robot where you can concentrate on cleaning that'll help with back to scan, cell count, and also the transfer of bacteria from cow to cow. So with the robot item operation, we go to the test menu, service position 3, move the arm across, and then under mothership and cook, we'll slacken the teacup. Or 4. That'll give you great access so you can clean the liners, the teacups, you can check the twin tubes and ropes whilst you're there, but also clean the footplates as well. One area it's important to concentrate on is the underside of this cover. That wipes the top of the teacups before every cow when it goes to do the pre-treatment, and so it's important that that's clean. It's one area that bacteria can be transferred. And also the brushes. These need to be disinfected properly. These nozzles here are adjustable. What we want to do is make sure that the brush disinfectant that's coming out of them is hitting the brushes and we're not wasting too much chemical off the side. The adjustment is on 2 bolts here, and if you go to the test menu and clean in under pre-treatment, you can switch on the brush cleaning. And you can see on this robot that the brush counter is covering the entire brush, but we're not losing any off the side. We recommend the Lely foam for cleaning your robots, because it's designed for cleaning your robots. You spray it on, leave it 10 minutes, give it a brush and then rinse it off with a volume washer. The volume washer is much better than a pressure washer. We've got sensitive electronics both on the arm and up underneath the arm, electrical connections on the brush motor, which are all prone to water ingress if they're cleaned incorrectly. So a volume washer is ideal. You can also clean anything up to the level of the top of the milk jar using a volume washer, although you should be careful around the milk pump if you've got an A5. A4 is no problem. We've got a couple of other more advanced options to help with somatic cell count and back to scan, and those are the USA cleaning on the brushes and also the Pura. If you have a Pura installed, it's an optional extra on your robot. That puts a small puff of steam inside the teat liners and just helps get rid of those last few bacteria in there which might transmit from cow to cow. If you've got that option, it needs to be switched on in the settings, and also the green trim inside the robot needs switching on. And then there's a pressure gauge on top of it, just to let you know whether it's working. If there's pressure there, then it is getting hot and it is working. Again, we need to make sure that the liners are sealed tight up against the jetters, so that steam is going inside the cup and doing what it's supposed to do, rather than being spoken on the outside. If you want help readjusting that and getting a better seal on there, if you speak to your Lely engineer, they'll be able to talk through it on the phone, or if we're there doing a service, we can adjust that for you. USA cleaning means that these brushes will come in, clean the udder, come back out, disinfect, and then go back in again and have another go at cleaning the teeth. Because we disinfect in the middle, that does reduce an awful lot of the bacteria that we find, which can cause a cell count or back to scan problems. I'll put the robot in operation now. You should see the USA cleaning in operation. Come in and clean the teeth for the first time, you might notice it's a shorter teeth cleaning, but because we're doing it twice, that gives us the same amount of teeth stimulation and milk let down, but reduces the box time. If we were continuing doing the USA cleaning at the same as a single cleaning, the box time would increase. So the brush comes back out, disinfects, spins a little bit to dry off the brushes, and then they go back in for a second cleaning. If you'd like to switch on the USA cleaning, the best people to speak to are your FMS advisors. They'll tell you how to adjust the settings to suit your order.
There. That was Chris's video. I'm just going to ask if anybody has any questions so far.
At the moment, there are no questions there yet, Wendy. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Now, please, if you have a question, by all means, fill it in the Q&A, which you can see at the bar on top of your screen. Now I'll go on. There we go. So if we look at what Chris has just showed us, we got the brush cleaning on the teats to stimulate the milk letdown. Now, things to look at is making sure that it works properly. So it's disinfected with parasitic acid, which is very quick acting disinfectant. You need to check the concentration of the acid as it's pumped up out of this sort of green drum into the system. Now we can see here on this farm in particular, there was not enough acid coming through. So we didn't smell it, we didn't see it. And we've got some PA sort of dipsticks, which people can use, farmers can use them. And we noticed there was a very low concentration of parasitic acid. There's a lot of leaking here, but there's also the lance that goes into the drum is at an angle. So let's say once the drum is half empty, it won't suck up any chemical anymore. So these are the things that as a farmer is worth checking, that you fitted it on correctly. The other thing is when you're talking about those brushes, check the actual condition of the brushes. So worn brushes clean less well because they're fluffier and sometimes even lost hairs. If they clean less well, then we get obviously dirtier cows. And the other thing that I've seen happening is hair or dirt stuck on the brushes itself. So the Astriel Clean has got a surfactant in it next to parasitic acid. That is a soapy chemical that basically helps the dirt to flick off the brushes easier. Hair itself, I've seen it's getting stuck on brushes when udders and tails got long hair. So we do recommend regular udder singeing and tail trimming to keep the cows cleaner, because obviously, you know, I think even on a conventional farm, we've seen with trimmed tails, cows stay cleaner. But also to prevent the hair getting stuck in the brushes, and then obviously that is a risk for spreading bacteria from cow to cow. Also, with less hair sort of interfering on the udder, you get better connection attempts because the laser can see the teats better. Though I must say, I'm quite impressed over the years, the lasers have become pretty good. Here we got another that's sort of, you know, it's got some hair, but it's not too bad. You can see it on me. But what I can see on this udder is teat end damage. So there's a lot of teat sort of, you know, ring coming out there nearly. So we want to prevent teat end damage. And we mentioned we got vacuum and pulsation settings. Standardly, they can vary per farm a little bit, but we milk at about 43 to 44 kPa. For actual on teat ends, that is 38 kPa. And we have a milk rest ratio of 65%. If that setting has been changed, then the question is why. We still do an annual milking parlor test, if you like, and no results of that are always available for anyone to view if you have a concern. And also the robot itself alarms when things are not working quite well. So we get things on the robot performance report like milk time differences and dead milk time differences on the robot, that's milk let down and actual milk time if it takes longer than usual. We also get sort of more active alarms that if the vacuum is deviating too much, for example. So farmers do get warned if things look like they're getting out of shape. But still, teat end damage, you know, is the thing we want to prevent. Takeoff or milk flow per quarter is one, so we should not get over milking. But if your milk flow sensor is not working properly, then obviously that takeoff level could change because the system is not working. So we need to look at that. Brush time of 2 times 4 seconds to get the best milk let down. So now we started looking at the start of milking to get less sort of bimodal milk in milk patterns. And we'll talk about that in detail later. But standardly, we like 2 times 4 seconds seems to get the best milk let down for most cows. The next thing is after milking, we need a quality post-milking spray. Now, we all know post-milking sprays are there to disinfect the teats again, killing bacteria if you like. But the other very important part of the post-milking spray really is teat skin conditioning. So look at your hands moisturizing. If you've got moisturized hands, you don't get so much chaps in your hands in winter, or on your lip balm for argument's sake. So post-milking spray is really important for its emollients to keep the skin supple and without any cracks. So once you got the good post-milking spray, we need to make sure it works well. So we need to make sure it hits the cow. So this is one thing to check. So we can have the best working spray, but if it doesn't hit the cow, it doesn't do a thing, clearly. So you want to check a couple of milkings, because you could be unlucky for the one cow, but let's say 3 consecutive milkings. If the post spray is always behind the teat or always in front of the teat, then we need to calibrate the robot arm. Farmers can do that. There's on your menus, you can calibrate the robot arm, and obviously clean and check the position of your 3D camera that is above the cow in the box. That is the one on A4s and A5s that finds the position of the cow. On A3, the slightly older robot, it's the wave floor that finds the position of the cow. So check that the wave floor is working well and it's not the stone stuck in it or something like that. Then practically, the other thing to watch is how much of a cone shape have I got? So we want a shape of the spray that goes like this to hit the teeth best, not a spray that hits like that, like a jet, because it's more chance of missing the teeth basically. So if it's not a cone, then we need to check the spray nozzle. Is that blocked? No, things easy to see. Or the post-spray time and pressure. And these are things that you can adjust. And especially, I would say, some sprays, let's say, get thicker in winter when it gets colder. So you might want to have a look at that when it gets colder or warmer, the other way around. Or if you change your product, then that quite often needs a slightly different adjustment because every product is either thinner or thicker. The other thing to think about is that we have an option on A5 to scan before spraying, so that could be more accurate, and therefore on the A5s we get the standard setting is 1 spray per teat. And then there's also an option to spray after failed milking. So failed milking is a milking that didn't quite go as planned, so it might have been milked on 3 teats or not at all. We can set it up that the cow is still sprayed with the post-milking teat spray, because obviously the teat ends are probably still opened up because the cow got ready to get milked. Lely has a couple of different sprays. They vary in, let's say, their level of disinfection and their level of teat conditioning. And we got both iodine sprays and lactic acid based sprays. We stay away from chloride sprays for the sensors in the robots that can get affected by that. So various concentrations are available for any suitable sort of interventions or preventions. Get in touch with your Lely sort of farm management support for the best advice on the different sprays if you have a concern there, of course. Now, there we go. More on teat conditioning. So when we have unnecessary milkings, now we used to think the more the merrier and the more milk. So yes, when you go from twice a day to 3 times a day milking, you probably get a milk increase. However, if you go to any old cow to 5 times a day milking, the increase could be that minimal that it's an unnecessary milking. So a 20 kilo cow, in our sort of view, is all fine with twice a day milking. Doesn't need 5 times a day milking to get, no, was it 4 or 5 kilos of milking? You get unnecessary teat aggravation, and you get more times a day that the teat ends is open. So you're increasing your risk of picking up of bacteria going into the teat. So there is this setting on the Lely software which is called milk access, and the aim is for regular milk intervals, and that's really important. We want the cow to come with the same time difference between each milking. That's best for her udder. It's best for the robot connections as well, because the udder is at the same shape. So we want a suitable milk access. For fresh cows, that's 4 to 5 milkings a day, because we want to train them and build up udder tissue. So we do want quite a lot of milkings from them, and at least 3 realistically. Once they've gone over their peak yield, so they've achieved their peak yield, we're in, let's say, the majority of cows. And then to be fair, we can say, okay, this is the yield you've achieved. So now we're going to milk you more or less to yield. So 2 to 5 milkings a day with an aim of somewhere between 8 to 12 kilos yield per milking, expected yield. Now that differs per farm, what we set that on. But these are sort of, let's say, guidelines to get regular intervals. Close to drying off, we lower down the milk intervals to help the drying off process. So the suitable milk access depends on the herd performance. So, and should be reviewed at regular intervals as well. So now on the robots, we got these other things, sensors. So we got lots of sensors. So we got general udder health sensors. So that's what I'm looking for at the moment this evening. Cow activity collars, and they can even throw up a cow distress if you like. So we're not looking at just heats, we're looking at cows doing rumination, eating minutes, and obviously activity. So if we get a distress alert, the cow is not as active as that she normally is. Then we got the robot itself. So we got arm sensors. So sensors in the robot arm. So where the 4 quarters each are milked and checked individually, if you like. So we're looking at milk color with a bit of a light beam, and that in itself gives you the milk color indication, which will be mastitis or water or abnormal or blood. Now that picks up, and this has been checked and researched, it picks up about 85% of your clinical mastitis cases. And once it's picked up a case, that is pretty much it. It's 99% accurate. So it does miss about 15% of your cases. However, we also added over the years the features of conductivity, and that is based on quarter level as well. So that looks at sort of salt levels in the milk that indicate a tissue damage. So that will help to identify, let's say, the other 15% of cows. Then we also have put down milk flow. So the milk flow sensor picks up how fast the milk runs out. If that changes, milk time changes. There's also sensors in the milk jar, so well near that area, if you like, so that look at the total milk. So when all milk is mixed up from the 4 quarters, that we're obviously looking at the daily milk yield. And if there's a deviation, so the cow suddenly gives less milk, we get an alert on the road reports. So check that out. It also checks the milk temperature. That's related to the body temperature, so could indicate a fever. It does fat protein as well. And then this optional thing called milk cell count. So that's done on the whole udder. So I have another video to show you on these sensors. And then we'll talk more about all these features. So bear with me. There we go. Got Chris again.
I'll show you a little bit about the MQC sensor, which stands for Milk Quality Control. This is one of the sensors. There's one per quarter. Milk goes in one end and out to the other. It has a PCB in the bottom, and it just communicates with the rest of the robot via this cable. The mounted on your robot up underneath here, and like I said before, this is one of the areas you want to be a little bit careful of, because it's only got a small rubber seal to seal it against water ingress. In cross section, the sensor looks like this. Milk flows through it, and the sensors are sat in the bottom there, the PCB underneath. And this sensor measures conductivity, the flow rate of milk, fat and protein percentages in the milk colour, and the temperature of the milk as well for every quarter. It's important that that information is as accurate as possible, and so we want to keep these sensors as clean as possible. That way Horizon or T4C is using the most It's there to remove mineral deposits, mainly from the inside of the robot system, but also from these sensors as well. It has factors in it which help it spread round onto the chemical, round onto the probes and the sensors in the bottom, and ensure that they're as clean as they possibly can be. As a farmer, one thing you can do is make sure that when the robot goes back to the jetty position, you're not losing lots of water around the outside of the teacup. You can calibrate the arm, or the jetty position might need changing slightly to make sure that the majority of the water that comes through there is going down into the teat liners and through to clean these sensors up underneath. I'll show you another video in a second as to why the milk flow measurement is so important. So I said I'd tell you a little bit more about the milk flow and why the sensor measurement for the milk flow is so important. This is a temporary graph to show you the milk flow from the udder over time and the rate that it comes out of the cow. Now it's important that we pick up the milk flow as soon as it starts, and that lets the robot know how long to measure before it calculates the takeoff settings. So it's important we start measuring there. If those sensors in the robot start getting dirty, there's a chance that it won't pick up the milk flow until we've got more milk coming out of the udder. That's fine, it will still milk the cow, but importantly, when we get to the other side, to the end of the milking, it won't measure that last bit of milk either. And that's critical for takeoff settings to prevent mastitis and high cell count. So that's why it's important to keep the flow sensors clean.
There, I'm going to hand you over now to my colleague Bas.
Or if there is one question here, Wendy, if you want to take that one, please.
Yes, of course I can.
If I would have kind of like all of a sudden a mastitis outbreak in my herd, what are the steps that you would recommend to take?
Okay, so a mastitis outbreak itself, by all means get in touch with your vet to discuss that. See where it comes from, and again, you'll probably go and find out, is it environmental, is it contagious? But yourself, probably that first sort of 1 or 2 days, you first go and walk around the shed and think, hang on a minute, what has changed? And are the risk factors there? So, are the cows for whatever reason more dirtier? Are they loose in their feces? On the robot itself, just look at your robot performance report and see if there's a robot flagging up on milk time issues. So very quick sort of basic check. And again, just look a couple of milkings and see, is your post spray still hitting the teats? Is your brushes brushing the cows? Just do your general checks, but have a good look. And then contact your vet, contact your FMS, and then we talk together and see where the potential issues are. That would be my go for it, really.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I kind of like take over now from Wendy, then I will follow on from Chris's video from just now. So I will share my screen, and can you let me know, Wendy, if you will see the Lely logo?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you very much. So as kind of Chris mentioned, he mentioned like the takeoff settings. With takeoff settings, it's, as we already probably know, herds are in a way not the same. So probably takeoff settings can also vary between herds. And that's why kind of we will touch on them just in general, what the default settings are, which we can change for individual herds, groups, or even individual cows. First of all is probably like a quick overview of the Lely vision about our milk technique, how we look at it. For one thing, what we want is it has to be quick and efficient, and milking is important to optimize robot capacity, but it should not be the only reason for milking the cow, because we can milk them very quick, but also what we want to do is make it gentle, that the cow has good comfort. We limit the stress on the teats, so we don't get teat end damage, and we maintain good udder health. But also, on the other hand, we want to make sure she is milked completely. So that kind of like all the milk that need to be harvested is harvested. We're not leaving too much behind the udder. We're also not kind of milking her too dry to take every little last milliliter out. So it is in a way a combination of the 3 points together to actually have the most efficient way of milking. Now the options on your Lely robot is as follows. There's a quick takeoff setting, which is the Lely preferred setting and normally also the default setting, which in a way looks at each individual quarter, and it will take off at 45% of the average milk flow. And as soon as that point has been hit, there will be an 8-second delay before the cups are taken off. The other option is normal takeoff, where we, instead of having 45% of the average milk flow of a quarter, we go down to 30% of that quarter. And again, an 8-second delay before we detach the cup. Then the next one is the extended takeoff, which is more like for individuals, or if you have created a group, or for an individual group, where in a way we have the same takeoff level as normal takeoff, but then we will wait 17 seconds before we take the cup off. So as a bit of an example, if the average flow of a quarter is 1000 ml, then with quick takeoff, 45% is 450 ml milk flow of that quarter. Then the 8 seconds will start counting and the cup get detached. With 1000 ml and then 30%, so normal takeoff, it will go down to 300 ml, and then the same thing will happen again. Anytime between the day when the delay starts, if the milk flow will go above the level again, so for instance, if we go back to 460 ml, it will reset itself again and will start again as soon as the flow goes below the takeoff level. So it is not that once we are below, it will take it off. It still will monitor if the milk flow will go up. Now, there was a discussion worldwide about the Americans said quick takeoff was not quick enough. They wanted higher milk flow. In Germany, they were saying our slowest normal takeoff was not slow enough. They wanted a slower takeoff. And the way Lely kind of solved the problem was custom takeoff, where in a way, as a farmer, you can set your own takeoff level to as high or as low that you want within reason. So if I open the screen here of the custom takeoff, then the option is there. We can kind of, if I get just the pointer out, then the option is there to change the flow by moving the dot, and also change the delay by moving the dot to either more seconds or less seconds, and then apply changes. This can be done on herd level, it can be done on group level, and can also be done on cow level. So it is a whole lot of options there for you to change when you want to. So practical tips, probably milk speed is not a predictor for the right setting. Milk speed is not everything. From like it helps because cows are milked faster, but it's not always an indication that the setting is right. And hence we have to kind of check probably on the cow side to see, okay, do we have a lot of high keratosis, or do we have discolored teats? Or if we do a strict test, do we got too much milk left in the quarter? So there's a lot of things that probably the cow will tell you more than actually the optimal setting based just on milk speed. But we also have to be careful that kind of like with fresh heifers, they're new to the system, they're new to the robot, they're more restless, which affects the flow. They are kind of not really their normal selves. So it is kind of like very important not to kind of put it too extreme. Hence, at least 15%, if not more, for the takeoff level and 4 seconds delay. Because if the delay is too short and somebody, for instance, will come into the clean room and bangs the door and the cow gets frightened, she pulls up her milk, and before you know it, the cups are off, the cow is out, and we actually haven't finished milking yet. Hence, it is very important to discuss these settings with our farm management support team to make sure it's the right solution for your farm. Also, as an example here, look a bit at milk flow curves and kind of like as it says here, the blue line is kind of the line for the milk flow. So it's the actual milk flow at the time. So it goes up and down a bit more. The red line there is the average milk flow for that quarter. So we see that the actual milk flow goes up. The average is a bit more of a straighter line. And we can see when it gets towards the end of the milking, milk flow starts going down. So if we then look at the little purple line down the bottom there, that actually is the takeoff level. So kind of like you can see there that over here, the kind of the milk flow is at takeoff level. And then at that point, the 8 seconds start counting down, because like we're looking here at the moment for the purple one is a normal takeoff. So like 30% and 8 seconds delay. 8 seconds is counting, 8 seconds is up, and it keeps the cups get detached. If we then look at the green one, that will be in a way 15 seconds and 17 seconds delay. And what we can see there is here already the line drops below. So the 17 seconds starts. Here it goes above again. So we are not taking off. It goes below again. We start counting again. And as you can see, it takes quite a while before we actually are staying below, hit the 17 seconds, and over here, we take the teat cup off. What I try to show with this picture is that you are actually milking that quarter nearly 2 minutes and 50 seconds longer, and we're only getting less than 100 ml of milk. So we're using a lot of robot time, B, not much more milk, and probably also very bad for the teat end if this is an ongoing thing. Hence, with the delay, we wouldn't really advise more than 10 seconds on herd level. And as earlier with the extended takeoff, 17 seconds for probably individuals or for a group of animals. So one thing we also found is that milk flows are different per cow. Milk flows are actually different per teat. And cows need different stimulation, different times of the lactation, but also on teat level, we have seen that actually cows do need different treatment. Hence, Lely is due to launch very soon the Pretreatment Optimizer. Pretreatment Optimizer, what is it? Also known in the field as PTO, which also is on the back of the tractor, but this is the Pretreatment Optimizer. And the aim for it is to have a unique pre-treatment experience and reduce the delayed milk ejection, so by modality on the cow, without compromising cow comfort or other health. So what we're trying to do is avoid bimodal milking. Sometimes in the parlor you will see it, if you have the time to actually, when you put the cups on straight away before any prep, you get milk flow and then it stops. And preparation is essential to have a successful, complete milking, but also gentle milking, so that actually there's milk flow when we put the teat under vacuum. The Lely brushers don't only clean the cow, but also stimulate the teats before milking. And with the Pretreatment Optimizer, it determines for each individual cow how many times and also for how long each teat is brushed for. What we're trying to do with that one is reduce bimodal milking and do not compromise cow and other health. And the thing is there also is, the question probably is, how do we know there's bimodal milking? And bimodality is a drop in milk flow after the start of the milking process. So here as a little graph, we can see that kind of, if I get the highlighter out again, we can see here we have milk flow, and then there it drops and then comes up. And that's like a kind of common bimodal milking curve. How does it kind of exist, the bimodal? It's just probably because we're trying to treat the teat not long enough. Some farmers sometimes say, oh, I need to speed up my milking. I go from 2 times for brushing to 1 time for brushing. Saves me 1 brush round, but actually that cow is then not ready for letting her milk down. And we can kind of cause issues by actually doing so. Ideally, what we want is in this picture, kind of like a good start, a fast start, a very level milk flow, and at the end, a quick kind of stop of the milk flow, so that actually that teat is not that long on the full vacuum, and we get a successful milking. And the way to do that is by having the right treatment for each individual animal. And with Pretreatment Optimizer, we actually get it for each individual teat. Because the consequences of bimodality, you get a low milk flow, so actually the cow will milk slower. You get a higher kind of vacuum at the teat end, so there will be more stress on the teat end, could cause a higher level of hyperkeratosis. There's like blue blood kind of sitting there at the top in the head that actually slows down and narrows the teat canal. The milking will go longer. Teats are stressed also for more longer than necessary. And there's also an increased risk of other health issues. Also, factors that influence the bimodality is stress on the animal, the pre-treatment, stimulation time and how we stimulate them, but also the udder fill, which then kind of comes back to milk interval, what Wendy mentioned earlier. It has to be regular, but also not too often if there's not enough milk in there. Can kind of influenced by the lactation number, the lactation stage, and also the milk yield of the cow. So actually, how does it actually work? First of all, the robot is looking at the milk flow profile for each individual teat. By measuring this, it will look at it and say, okay, is it bimodal? Is it not bimodal? If then the answer is yes, it is bimodal, the brush's time will change, and also sometimes the brush times will change. So instead of brushing twice, it could start brushing the teeth 3 times. And it will adjust every time it does it to actually see, okay, is she now less bimodal? If she is less bimodal, we stick where we are. If she is still bimodal, we increase either the time or the amount of times we brush. But it's also based on a cow and by a teat basis. So you will see that on one cow, each teat could have actually a different brush setting than actually it has at the moment. And at the moment it's normally set all 4 teats at the same. So reducing bimodality in a way by the kind of optimum treatment for each individual quarter, instead of kind of like brushing and actually having bimodality, which then have other kind of precautions to the cow. So there are some conditions with Pretreatment Optimizer, and actually it will say that it will not function if the herd's free time is less than 5%. So if your robots are chock-a-block and there's less than 5% free time, the Pretreatment Optimizer will not activate and will not work. Ideally, as the Lely recommendation, 10% free time or more, it will work kind of like with the cows for you. What it also will do is it will start first with the most bimodal cow in the herd. If she is optimized, it will go to the next one and the next one till kind of like either we have them all optimized or there's no more time available on the robot. Cows with a mastitis attention are not being optimized and taken out of the optimizer. Also, cows that are failing often are not taken into the optimization because it affects her milk flow. And also cows where you have set her at a manual setting. So they also are excluded from this. After switching on the Pretreatment Optimizer, it will take at least 14 days before we actually kind of see the influence of the Pretreatment Optimizer, because it is building a picture of the cow. So that actually we are working there 14 days of data before actually anything will change. What we have seen in the field is that prior to having the Pretreatment Optimization on, about 40% of the quarters in a herd are bimodal. And after switching on the Pretreatment Optimizer, we have seen it being less than 25%. As there is not really any research done on a quarter level of bimodality, it's not really sure how good it is, but any kind of reduction there is a benefit to cow health, to your cows, and also to other health and cell counts. So what we will see in a way, the cow enters the robot and in normal times is brushing, but like with the pre-treatment optimizer, we probably will start brushing longer. So our pre-treatment time will go up. Because the teat will be fuller with milk, connections are easier and connection attempts are likely to be reduced or at least stay the same. Because the cow is more readily for milking, we can see an increased milk speed when the milk flow is there, which equals to a more efficient way. And again, at the end, spraying is the same time as before because we're not changing anything to the sprayer. We are in a way only saying that it will help other quality, other kind of health. In some occasions, you might actually see an increase in speed, but it's not something that we use to promote the system. So also kind of Chris mentioned about the cell counter. So the milk quality control cell count, so the MQCC, kind of which is available kind of on the robots if you have an MQC2 or higher fitted to the robot itself. So why actually do I need an MQCC or a cell counter on my robot? I got already a milk quality control, which actually does the conductivity. So why do I need it? With the milk quality control, the MQC, we pick up clinical cases. So we will pick up the ones with the clots, or in a way, we pick up the bad apples. So we pick up the bad apples in the bunch, and actually kind of we can deal with them when they are flagged up by the robot. With the cell counter, we also pick up the subclinical ones and the chronic cases ones, which tend to be the mastitises without the clots. So when you check these animals that are flagged up, you most likely will say there's no clots, so what's the thing? But they are in a way in the process there that actually kind of, hey, they can come worse when they're subclinical. They could go clinical or chronic. So we actually pick them up at an early stage. So you as a farmer can actually do something with these animals. And also we can use it for dry cow therapy. And Wendy will cover that later on, how we can use that information to actually decide what kind of treatment we're going to do with these animals. So also it gives you an indication of cell count. Now previous versions of it was giving you a banding. Now it actually will give you a number. So it will tell you, Mr. Farmer, this cow's animal is 250, or Mr. Farmer, this kind of like cow cell count is 400. So it gives you a good reading where it is. Also in a minute, kind of Chris will do a video on actually how does it work to give you a bit more insight from what we measure. But again, it's very useful for subclinical and chronic cases to actually pick these up and monitor how they go. Gives the information for dry cow therapy, and also can safeguard your tank cell count because it will give you an impact on the herd figure. So you will know that particular animal is contributing the most to the cell count. And what is important, probably two major factors is mastitis, animal welfare, high cost, loss of milk production, but also milk quality. Either a bonus is there if the cell count is under control, or if it is not under control, we could actually see a penalty from that point of view. Also, it will give us an option to probably treat the clinical cases before they get clinical. And because high cell count is loss of production and creates losses. Also reduce infection pressure for other cows by actually taking care of these animals early. Early treatment also a higher cure rate. So there's more success from what we do with her to kind of get her better. But treatment doesn't always mean using antibiotics. Most cases, as soon as a cow is flagged up with either high cell count, check the animal, put some Udder on the udder. 9 out of 10 times that actually helps her getting over it, because subclinical cases can self-cure, and treatment or helping her with it can actually double the chance of cure before we have to interfere with any antibiotics. So it is very important that these lists are checked twice a day for you to be on top of the cow health. Also, successful treatment prevents subclinical to become clinical or chronic. So if we get them in the early stage, we actually kind of like will have more milk in the tank. Because clinical cases is a lower chance to cure compared with subclinicals. So also here, kind of like, how does it work? In a way, it's kind of like a mixture of having milk, having reagent, mix it together, and then through the liquid, we have a magnet going that actually then measures the cell count. So technically, it's a Californian milk test done automatically. So I don't know if there's any questions at the moment, Wendy.
Yes, Bas, we've got one question coming.
Okay.
This is about the pre-treatment optimizer.
Yeah.
So the PTO, is that also available on A4 robots?
Yes, it will be available on A4 robots. The only probably robots that it won't be available on is on the A2 robot and on the A3 robots. It's not available mainly because of the way the electronics work on the robots. So yes, it is available on an A4 when it comes available in Horizon.
Okay, thanks, Bas.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
if there's no, we have a video from Chris, like he said, explaining how the MQCC actually works. So.
Which is a somatic cell count machine. It's basically an automated California milk test. So it mixes a reagent with a sample of milk, and as that thickens, it measures the viscosity. First of all, it takes a sample of the milk and measures the viscosity, takes a sample of the reagent and measures the viscosity, and then it does the same with the mixture of the two. It measures it by mixing them inside that little cell there. We have an electromagnet and a magnet at the top. Takes the sample in, it uses a magnet to mix the solution, and then times how long it takes that sensor to drop. Now importantly, it has to know whether there's reagent or milk in there, and it uses two sensors at the top to do that. These two sensors are just located inside there, and to keep those clean, it's important that the reagent that goes through is clean, and also that you're using the correct chemicals. It washes via the milk line, so as the robots are doing a hot wash, it takes hot water and chemical in to wash that cell inside. And one thing that you can do to help is always use mains water to mix your reagent. When it's run out and you've got that tiny bit left in the bottle, throw that away, rinse the inside of the bottle and refill with fresh liquid. When you come to refill it, I always like to take this off, just bleed through some reagent and then put it back on, and that just prevents any airlocks.
Okay, I hope that was very informative. So we'll, unless there's any questions, I'll go on with the rest of the slides. There we go. So we had the cell count reader, and I thank Bas very much for explaining how that one works, how the pre-treatment optimizer works, and many of the other settings like custom takeoff. So when we're talking takeoff and pre-treatment, we're really trying to reduce any over milking at either the start or the end of milking, because that can cause damage to the teats if it happens. And in that way, we're preventing, let's say, more mastitis options to get onto the cows. And thank you very much for that question as well. Like, what do we do? I've got an outbreak. I was going to say, it really is first things first, is just looking in your shed, like what can I see, what has changed. And then the next thing also is actually looking at all these reports. So once you've checked the cows, these are all the, let's say, health related reports that you could check. And these are supposed to be checked every day, most of them twice a day, really. So we got the health reports, and that gives you cows with more than 2 deviations from the norm. So that makes it more likely that she's probably clinically ill with something. So we're looking at activity, cell count, like we mentioned, mastitis indications, conductivity, temperature, and there we go, rumination, eating minute, weight change, fat protein, and milk yield deviation. The next list become a bit more specialist. So we got an other health list. So that really looks at other health. So you might have the same cows on there, but you can have a couple extra on this list that are cows that are just having something with cell other health. So let's say just a cell count. She won't be on the health report unless she's got a temperature as well, or unless she's less active as well. On the other health list, she will be on. So there's just one other health alert in their last milking. So these are ongoing current cases, what you're looking at. The difference is with the next other health report, if you like, the other health analysis, is that that is one that keeps cows on there for the next 2 weeks. So that one is more monitoring the progress of cows. And that's, can you see if your treatment, whatever you did, whether that was either mint or an antibiotic, that's your decision. And the decision you can discuss every now and again and review with your vet, like what do I do with a cow that just flags up, what do I do with a cow that flags up for 3 days, things like that. You monitor the progress and your treatment success, if you like. The next report might not be so obvious, but I put it on there because the collect cows or the fetch cows are the cows that are late for milking, so that should have come to the robot to be milked but haven't. So the question is why? So there's a couple of things why these are also important for other health. A, if they haven't been milked, you have got no milking data. You will still have the activity data, but you will not have the last, her current, let's say, mastitis indication or cell count, because the robot hasn't seen any milk in the last 24 hours, and she's really late. The other thing is cows that have an incomplete milking, so failed milking, will be on that list. And I've seen a couple of times that a cow that usually milks very successfully suddenly doesn't milk successfully because she got mastitis in 1 quarter. And if it's a really yucky mastitis, there's just no milk flow, or the milk letdown, the milk time is too slow. So that can be an indication that you just need to check that cow. So cows are late for milking, just need to be checked. And if it's not a usual, let's say, late cow, then there could be another health issue or any other health issue be the cause of her being late. On the practical side, so where do we find all these reports? I'm looking here at, let's say, the Horizon phone app screen. So that will tell you the things you sort of need to know on a day-to-day basis. So your tasks are the reports or the tasks you check twice a day. So there's your health report on there and your fetch cow list and your other health if you created that as a task, which you can do. So those 3 are already on there. So that's the ones you track twice a day. If you want to know a bit more and see, let's say, slightly bigger reports with a little bit more information, you go to your PC and you do that at least once a day. And if you look at the health report there, you can click on each cow. I mean, to be fair, on the phone, you can click on the cow as well and get her details. But the PC, I find, gives a bigger screen, and you can look at a few more graphs and longer reports of the cow to see what she did yesterday, what she did in her last milking, because remember, we got 3 to 5 milkings for each cow, so 3 to 5 bits of information per day. You look at the failed milkings report and note which cows are not milked on a particular quarter, and look at that dead milk time, for example. And then we can look at that report that I mentioned before that monitors the cows for longer, so the other health analysis report. This is the PC screen, and I know we are in the process of moving from T4C to Horizon. So a lot of farms are using this program. T4C will still have the same reports. I'm using Horizon here so you can see where to find them. Here we got that same screen as you had on your phone. So you still got that little task list. So you got your fetch cow health report, your udder health. And here's your little sort of, well, what shall I say, A4 sheet with a little graph on it, and that's the button to go to your more detailed reports. If you click on that, you get something like this. You get all reports, and then we go to health, of course. There we get reports sorted on specific health features. So there we go. You get your udder health analysis report, which we talked about, and your udder health work list. There's a few others here as well. So we see the cell count report. That is for later on herd analysis more, and your analyze health treatments as well. We'll talk about these later. Interestingly here, if you have collars that measure heat stress, you have them here as well. So the health report is based on the last milking. What you see is a score from 0 to 100. And let's say the most sickest cow will score the highest. So in this case, the cow scoring 74 is a concerning cow, where the cow scoring 11 is probably less clinically ill. But still, every cow on the health report needs checking because she has more than one issue going on with her. So let's say this cow, she had a milk drop. She had a high cell count there, and she had consecutive weight loss as well. And then, there comes the hint. We got connectivity on right rear. So it's very likely that whatever the cell count causes and the milk drop is to do with something in the right rear. You click on that cow, and then you can see her actual milkings over the last couple of days. And also her activity graphs and rumination graphs. The udder health work list and analysis, I'll just put them together there because they give all the same columns, but just a longer list really. So what we're looking at, conductivity. So conductivity is usually about 70. It depends a bit per cow, and the robot will look at how much the cow deviates from her norm. Unless she goes really high, then there's like over 100, she always comes up. So we can see conductivities here, and if they, there we go, this cow, right rear, high conductivity. We also do a color code. On this little report, you might see it or not, it says abnormal, but you could get there your blood or mastitis indication there. Attention for failed milking. So if the cow had an incomplete milking, a failed milking, you'll see a cross there, and you know, okay, hang on a minute, she did come to the robot at least, so that makes good effort, but her milking was not complete. So I could even be looking at a quarter that was not milked at all. So have a look at that cow. Milk yield deviation, obviously changing milk yield is a big indicator of something, and the cell count indication you can see. Then the percentage of high cell count, high cell count of her total milking. So that gives an indication of how chronic this cow is. How many of her milkings was she already high? Or even if you take in account her when she calved, you can see if she started having a high cell count shortly after calving, which would then point towards potentially picking up an infection in the dry period or roundabout calving. So use that percentage high cell count for that. Now the other one is impact of a cell count on the herd. So the robot system does not show you the bulk tank cell count, but as a farmer you will know that because you get that sent on your phone. The robot knows the herd cell count following the MQCC reader. So as long as that reader is working correctly, then you get your herd average cell count, and you can see here if this cow's got a high cell count, what impact has her cell count plus her milk yield on the herd cell count. So if you're struggling to keep your bulk tank in line, those are the cows to treat and take out. That gives the biggest impact. The next column is lactation days. Well, again, like I said, that gives you an indication when did that issue start. And that helps you with your preventative actions, whether you need to look into the dry period or in the lactation period. The last column is your udder health attention count, and that's fairly similar. You can see how many times you had an udder health attention. So let's say the highest counts are probably the more chronic cows, the cows that are dealing with this the longest, and the lower counts are new cows. So when to treat a cow for mastitis. Now, Bas mentioned that all these sensors give you an early indication, so use that, but don't overuse it either. So what I would sort of suggest, and this is something you really want to discuss at times within your team on the farm, go to report 23, there's udder health analysis, click on the cow to see her history. So here we had the report, here we clicked on a cow, that cow comes up, and when I clicked here on her tap milk, so I can see daily, that will be every visit. I can see quality, and I love seeing graphs, but if I wanted to see this graph into report, I flick the button here to report. Now I see a graph, and I can clearly see that 1 quarter is really outdoing her for a long, long time. This farm didn't have the cell count reader, I see. But you might have seen otherwise a cell count graph going through here, and maybe go up and stay high, or yo-yo probably, to be fair.
Wendy, are you still there? Because I can't hear you anymore.
Even add an extra treat. You can even add an extra, let's say, anti-inflammatory treatment, or let's say mention that you put the udder mince cream on. You can set that plan up, and then you can use the same sort of blank format for each cow, but fill in obviously the batch numbers for the specific drugs you used. There we go. So treatment plans go in manage health, set up your standard treatment protocols. There is an option for hot rinse, and this is one to look out for, because we see there's a lot more oily substance tubes on the market these days. So look at your data sheet and see if the mastitis tube that you use has got an oily bit in its components, and then tick that box for hot rinse. That clears out the milk lines better, so you don't get as much residue. If you use a drug off-label, make sure you set up the correct withhold periods. Milk is withheld automatically in the robot system, and after each milking that is on milk separation, so once you've done a treatment with a milk withhold, the milk is taken, does not go to the bulk tank, but is usually dumped. You get a local rinse, and that also happens after a filled milking for the same cow, and that could be a cold rinse or a hot rinse. Like say, if you use an oily tube, take a hot rinse. You get a note each day when your treatment is due in the health treatment task list. So if you got, let's say, a protocol doing 3 treatments, 1 each day, every day you get that note on your task, and that should hopefully prevent any doses being missed. Now, the next thing is dry off treatments. And this is a new feature, really, the dry off treatment analysis. So I'm going to show you in the Horizon software. So this is not available in T4C. So if you haven't got Horizon yet, this is one feature to look forward to. There, you go to your reports and health, like we just did a moment ago. Now we've got here this button, dry off treatment analysis. So what happens when I click that? You start to see something like this. If you've had treatment plans for your dry off treatments already in your software, then Horizon will take over what was in T4C. And you can see here the treatment plan. So you have in this farm, we have NoroSeal. I'm not taking any parts for any drugs. This just happens to be the case. and Ubro Star plan. And we see how many cows were treated in the last year with these treatment plans, what their cell count was before drying off, and what happened after, between, let's say, dry off and after calving. We also have some no treatments here. It's only a few cows, and what happens here is these cows basically were not treated with a treatment plan. So please use treatment plans for dry off, and then it will register it correctly. How do I interpret this? Well, I've just taken the table out, made it larger. The graph was quite nice to see how many cows were dried off each month and when was different treatment plans used. This is viewing in onto the little table. Now, the cutoff point that Lely uses is a cell count of 250. So keep that in mind. Low actually means low before drying off and low after calving. And we're looking a good month after calving. Improved is, let's say, from high cell counts to low cell counts. Still high is high to high. And worse is, let's say, from low to high. And remember, we're talking the cutoff point of 250. If you are familiar with the NMR analysis, then you will have seen a similar sort of things before, but not split off in treatment plans, just on a whole herd. NMR uses the cutoff point of 200 cells. And there, let's say, targets of the best herds were from low to low of 89% should be, or obviously more, because the more the better. We want low cows, especially after calving. So this is not exactly the same, so I'm stressing that it's not the same, but at the moment is our first indication of maybe how do I start using this. So we can see here we're looking at, let's say, the sealant cows. Clearly they started off before calving with a lower cell count, and the, let's say, the treated cows had a higher cell count before drying off. That makes sense. We see that of those cows we had, let's say, but that was still from low to low as well, because that was the average cell count. But we see here we had, let's say, of the older cows, the 3+, there was half of them was low to low. We had lots of them improved, but we had 12% actually went high. Borderlining there. But if we walk to the sealant on this farm, we see that actually of the older cows, we had 20% that went from low to high. So, and of the younger cows, which is even more concerning possibly, we had them as well at a fairly high percentage. So I would say this farm would definitely want to look at their dry cow management and see if there is ways that these cows are getting infections onto their udders, even with the sealant. So this is what you can use this for, and it's only been released in the last month. So yeah, have a look at using this. If you want to do more analysis, let's say every sort of couple of months or so, you're looking at your dry cow treatment analysis and make your plans how to move forward. Your health and overview can give your medicine usage. That is a list of treatments. Remember, each dose is listed, so it's a long list. But if you want to get into detail, you can export it to Excel and work with it. The other ones that you can look at are analysis of health treatments, and that's below here. That gives you a summary of, let's say, all the cows that were treated with foot issues, with mastitis issues, or with metabolic issues. And you can select that out on lactation stage or the years or months in the settings. So that can that's a nice one to just give you an overview quickly of which months or which year there was an issue with mastitis, to see season issues effects. The other one is analyze cell count. That is a very simple graph of the cell count of the whole herd throughout a period of time. So that was it on yeah, on the software side of things. It was on the cows we looked at, the cows, the sheds, the robots, the risk areas there. Then the fine tuning of actually the milking process. And then we looked at how to spot other health issues in the software. So yeah, I would just open up the discussion really. You can either put your hand up or just unmute yourself and ask a question, or type a question into the Q&A. And I'm going to ask Bas as well to join me again. I'm going to try and start my video again. Okay, I don't seem to be allowed to do that. So, okay, Bas.
Okay, Wendy, I hope you can hear me. Yeah, there was a question earlier also about report 10 that you mentioned, and in your example, there was an animal on there with a score of 74 and one with 11. At what score will a cow be added to that report?
Anything over score 0, as far as I'm aware. But mainly what it is, a cow needs to have two things, two alerts, if you like, where we looked at, I think I mentioned the list, so her weight deviation is more than we expect to be normal. Her cell counts, her conductivity, milk temperature, fat and protein, and her usual activity or rumination or eating minutes. So if she's got on all these features, she's flags up on 2 accounts, then she'll end up on the report, and then the report will decide how much she deviates and what score it will give her.
Thank you very much. And yeah, if people can raise their hand when they have a question, then actually we can unmute them, or so that, yeah, if you have a question, either raise your hand or probably put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A. And also apologize that we overrun slightly with the time. But yeah, if you have any questions, please raise your hand, type it in the chat, or put it in the Q&A before we close this meeting. And if you have no questions, then I thank you for joining us tonight, and hope it was informative. And after the meeting is finished, we will share with you the recording for you to have another look at your own leisure. And thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Bas, as well, for joining us. And I would like to say thank you to Chris as well. And Fiona, who made the videos, which is a new thing for us. So I hope they were very informative and broke up the evening a bit. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.